Welcome. It's June 2023's version of the Philmont Trek Talk live chat discussion that we do every month on the second Tuesday at 9 p.m. on the East Coast, with the sole and express purpose of helping everyone have the absolute best trek possible at Philmont Scout Ranch. So we are up and running, and we've got a packed agenda tonight. I'll give you just a quick preview. We're going to do introductions. We're going to ask Daryl, who is in Cimarron, to introduce us to the folks there at the Burrito Banquet and then get updates from the ranch since he's actually working there now. And then we've got Brett down here is going to talk to us about bears at Philmont. And somewhere amongst all of this, we're hoping that we're going to get some live interaction from an audience that has questions, because folks are at Philmont, folks are departing soon. This is your last chance, if you haven't left for Philmont yet, to ask questions. So ask those in the chat, whatever platform you're on, and we will mix those in as we can, because we have a busy agenda tonight. So to start things off, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm the skipper of Sea Scout Ship 4019 in Burlington, North Carolina, and the proprietor of one of the sponsors of the program, Gear Report, and specifically Camping Gear Report. And with that, let's go to Rob, and we'll work our way down clockwise around the batch and then come back to Daryl for the update.
All right, I'll be quick. Rob Smith. I'm from St. Louis area, right now in Ohio, so not there now. With Troop 85 in O'Fallon, Illinois, and I'm the High Adventure chair, and also proprietor of highadventurescouting.com. Or I'm not sure who next. Daryl.
Daryl's got to unmute himself.
Well, it's probably better if you didn't hear me. I'm Daryl Tedson, also from St. Louis area, currently at Philmont, working as volunteer staff in the Welcome Center, and I am coming to you from the inner sanctum, the holy of holies of the Burrito Banquet kitchen trailer. And I'll introduce my guests as we get around. Well, no, Kathleen, step up. This is
Kathleen Smiley. I own the Burrito Banquet. I live in beautiful Cimarron, New Mexico.
Tom Annunziato, 30-day volunteer up here at the Welcome Center with Daryl, my dad, and just enjoying myself a lot. Might go in the backcountry after June 30. Just helping out.
Nice.
He usually calls me Grandpa.
Well, all right. Welcome to the program. Thank you.
There we go. Okay. There you go. Sal Porto, Greater Tampa Bay Area Council, contingent lead for our council going to Philmont. We are 6/18 crews. So look for us on the trails starting next week. And we are bringing 5 crews. So also owner proprietor of Suncoast Wilderness First Aid. Next, Mr. Brett.
Brett Johnson. I'm an assistant scoutmaster with Troop 498 out of Grand Prairie, Texas. Was on staff and with the council. I'm currently on the Conservation Committee and Risk Management Committee. And the more important thing for tonight, I'm a professional wildlife biologist. Got my start really in wildlife biology there at Philmont. I was the bear researcher on the ranch for 4 seasons. Been out there the last 2 years as a visiting forester, and we'll be back out there in a week and a half, 6/24 as an advisor.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. I know that there's been some discussion this week about bear stuff, so it's very timely that you're here this time for this month's show, and I can't wait to get to that information. But first, we're going to ask Daryl to give us updates from Daryl has been kind of our official, unofficial staff person the past couple years, who has had been the one officially designated to give us updates from the ranch. So what do people need to know? What's changed, or what procedures are most important for people to be reminded of right now?
Well, for those who have been here before, from my perspective, the ranch is getting back to normal. What you saw in 19 and 20, barring COVID protocols and so forth, they're off the table. None of that is being done now. It's really kind of business as usual as far as hiking and checking in and so forth. There are some updates. Cimarron has had a lot of rain in the last couple of weeks. In fact, yesterday yesterday was Tuesday, Monday, Sunday evening, it rained all night, and Monday we had almost 3 inches or 4 inches of rain and hail all day long, and the temperature probably didn't get to 60. It was cold. The campsites at Phillips are closed because of snow. The campsite at Copper Park is closed. One of my crews is supposed to be there in about 3 or 4 days. They have been reassigned to Baldytown. Again, for not so much snow on the mountain or on the peak, but at the campsites, and particularly if you're familiar, the campsites are on the east side of the peak, and they get a lot less sun, so they have still a lot of snow accumulation. The good news, if you will, is with all the rain and the snowpack, the backcountry streams are running full, running solid. Water should not be a problem in the backcountry, and it is gorgeously green, everything. The other good thing about that is, with all the moisture, the trails are probably, at least for the next few days, not going to be real dusty, which for us slower folks who end up in the back of the line, it's rather nice. So, other than that, as far as check-in and the process, it's pretty much what we're used to. I'll bring Tom in for a second. Anything that I missed?
No, everything seems to be running right on time. We haven't had much problem with tent assignments, or, you know, the only problem I've seen is the chicken tenders aren't as tender as you think they should be. But other than that, everything seems to be going real well. I'm pretty impressed this year. It's wetter, it's more moist, it's cooler by far. It's not as hot near as it used to be last year. Tents are comfortable.
We have all seen these prior to this. Philmont Trek Talk.
There we go. All of us here have probably seen those, but
I've got one on my pack. Yeah.
you know, it
And I
occurred
would
to
like,
me.
for being on the show, I'm going to present one to Tom Annunziato.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank
awesome.
you. Now we need the Burrito Queen to have one too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other things in the backcountry, can't really say anything specific. Either negative or positive. It's kind of business as usual. Please bear with us as you check in. Your first day here is going to be busy with orientation and checking in with your ranger. It is what it is. The program is terrific. The staff is excited. The backcountry staff is excited to be here. And if you're here right now in the next day or two, maybe a little rusty on the backcountry program, but they'll get it down in the next week and a half, and so forth. Some comment down there, wow, snow on Copper Park. Yes. Well, I'm not sure to that address. I'm not sure if Copper Park has snow, but the approach from that side is going to be difficult, and the trail is probably closed. So rather than have them go over to Copper Park and have to come around the other way, they've rescheduled them into Baldytown.
Hey, Daryl, any news on when and if it's going to open?
No, not at this time. My crew was due at Copper Park, I believe, Friday. So they're anticipating from today, Tuesday, till at least Friday, that it'll be closed.
Okay. Well, I'm not supposed to be there till the 26th, so maybe.
The later itineraries, the later you move into the season, the better they'll be. The better your chance.
We'll be flexible.
Please do.
You're not going to be the leper colony this year, so that'll be an improvement.
Yay, no leper colony.
Medical check-in is running smoothly. They are very strict on height and weight restrictions. When I was over there for recheck, there was quite a few people that they had step up on the scale and took their height measurements. So if you have that issue and you have the time, try to grow 2 or 3 inches and you'll be okay.
You mean up, not sideways, right? Because I can
Yeah.
manage sideways.
If you
I
can
don't
get
know
to
about
when the horizontal and the vertical equal, we're in trouble.
Right. Gotcha.
With that, I'd like to ask Kathleen to step forward, give a little background. How did she get here? You know, in Cimarron as part of Burrito Banquet, and whatever, you know, unbiased plug she wants to give. Welcome to it.
Thank you very much. Y'all, thank you for having me. I have the Burrito Banquet, and I have designed it especially for all scouts that come through and the staff. There's lots of games to do. We sing, we laugh, we have a good time. And it's a special place. I bought it 5 years ago. I am originally from New Mexico, and it's just makes my heart grow every year. Every time I meet the kids, and they tell me their stories, and they're dusty from the trail, and it's just an amazing experience. With that, I have a couple things to present to Daryl. Homemade soap. You might need that on the trail.
Yeah, I got to keep clean.
Don't let anybody bite you sticker.
Don't bite my burrito.
Don't bite your burrito. And a homemade Philmont chocolate.
Yeah, I saw those chocolates online.
Yep.
Those look pretty simple.
Tell them about your online, your website that they can go see.
I don't have a website, but my Facebook page is Kathleen's Burrito Banquet. And if anybody needs any special orders, you're coming in at 3 a.m.
This is new. Listen up.
If you're coming in at 3 a.m., you're leaving at 9 p.m., and you want to feed your troops, you call me, make contact with me, and I will make sure that you get everything you need to go here or to leave. So just let me know. I am here to help you all through your journey at Philmont.
It's kind of like Burger King. Special orders don't upset us.
No, they don't. They don't.
She will do whatever she has to make it happen
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
All right. For being on our show,
Yay!
another one.
There we
I'm
go.
going to put it on my wall. Please bring me patches. My wall is really looking good, y'all. So thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and have a good night. Thank you, Daryl.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Oh, next one. Bye, y'all.
All right.
There
Thank
we
you.
are. Okay.
All right. I've dropped the link to the Facebook page in the chat. So if anyone would like to go check out Kathleen's Burrito Banquet Facebook page, you can click on that link to go check it out.
Yeah, she stepped out to do some cleanup. She basically closes at 6 o'clock. You know, needs to do the cleanup. And she told me to the side she gets up about 3 a.m. to start cooking.
Wow.
So,
All right.
All right, moving on.
Yes, moving on. So thank you. Let's see. Did we get another? There we go. Missed a comment there that came in. Glad we're going to be at Copper Park beginning of August. Yeah. You get a little later in the summer, it is less likely you're going to have snow issues.
Yep.
You may be soupy muddy, but it sounds like it's soupy muddy now. So big change from several years ago. It used to be, you could count on June being a little cooler and July being the start of monsoon season. And I can tell you the last 2 summers I was in, got there mid-June and was there through the end of June, and we got just soaked. So it looks like June's getting wetter with every passing year. So I'd like to personally thank global warming.
Yeah, the backcountry seems to be absorbing it. Yesterday morning, the outbound buses to the trail, because of the overnight rain, were running about an hour late, just so they could get, the roads and trails, like I said, are moist. They're not, from what I'm hearing, they're not muddy, where you're getting it all caked to your boot and so forth right now.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so a little gear plug before we get into the bear talk and comments from the rest of the world. If it's going to be muddy, it's getting more popular for people to wear trail gaiters. Used to be gaiters were these big things that went halfway up to your knee, and they were big and bulky. And there are a lot of lightweight options now. I think a lot of people in the trail runner type community like a company called Dirty Girl Gaiters. I know I wear Ultra running shoes, and I wear Ultra gaiters, and they make a huge difference when it's wet and muddy, keeping the mud off of the socks and stuff out of the shoes or low boots. I wear higher shoes, but still keeps the funk out. So there's a trail tip for you if you're looking for that kind of thing. I'll remind everyone, but I see we do have some people out there watching, and a few comments coming through here and there. We have plenty of things to talk about, but the main purpose of this show is for you to be able to ask questions. So please put those questions. Visit the StreamYard.com/Facebook and give it permission to show your name and then leave a comment. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have to the best of our ability. So with that, Brett, thank you for being here. And I've seen some of the things you've written that are absolutely fascinating about your experience tracking bears. I mean, I'm trying to think, how many different things have I seen you write? Like, you've done a wide variety of things with the bears, some of them up close and personal, some of them, a little bit more remote with technology and whatnot. I'd love for you to first and foremost say whatever you would say to people who are scared about being in the backcountry because of bears. And then if you want to go down some of the rabbit holes of some of the cool things you've done or seen or witnessed, I would like to thank you in advance for not scaring anyone off of the trail during this discussion. But with that, thanks so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for putting the blinders on there about not going into too much. Just kidding. So, like I said, I am a professional wildlife biologist now by trade. I've been doing that for about 20 years. Got my start really working with Bob Rickliffs when he was the ranch superintendent out there. Learned a lot about bears through him. At one point in time, he was considered to be probably one of the top bear guys in the West. And I consider him to be a major professional mentor of mine. So with that, like I said, I was the bear researcher there on the ranch. In 1999, 2000, I was in grad school in 2001 when that incident occurred. But I came back in 2002 and 2003. And when I came back in 2002, my specific job that go around in late May, early June of 2002 was, quote, to reinstill a respect of the bears, even with the staff.
Right. Yeah.
So the first thing I'm just going to tell everybody is, man, getting a chance to see a bear at Philmont, for me, it's an amazing deal. I love it. On average, it works out that usually about 30 to 33% of the crews at some point in time on their track are probably going to see a bear. But what I can tell you, to put everybody's mind at ease, is if you are following the procedures as your ranger tells you, your chances of having a problem with a bear are basically slim to none. When you go back and you look at the records, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. When you go back and look at the records and read and go over the incident reports, in basically every case, there were violations of what are now the bear procedures. Mm-hmm. Now, I need everybody to also understand that, yes, you have to understand as we learn more and things progress, sometimes even in the course of the summer, those procedures may change. We may have a particular area where a bear decides it likes to play with something that just normally isn't even thought about. It happens. You know, I've seen a bear suddenly just, even though, you know, it should be over by a sump or in a bear bag, suddenly decided it liked scrubbies. Even completely unused scrubbies. Like to play with them. Didn't do anything with them, just like to play with them. So, now, if you don't get anything else from what I tell you tonight, for the love of God, listen to your ranger. Okay, because I'm going to be an advocate here. I'm an advocate, obviously, for the safety of the campers. You know, in my own council, I'm on the risk management committee. But same token, I've got to be an advocate for the bears. And to that end, I'm just going to tell you, why am I so passionate about the bears? And I can tell you, it's one incident. We'll just say near a central country rock climbing camp that we'll just say, in hindsight, a bear was being seen on a regular basis, and it wasn't necessarily getting reported. And we had a crew that came in, they were excited to get the program. They hung their bear bags. But I'm going to tell you right now, they missed a lot. And the bear came in and started rummaging around the campsite. And when I say rummaging around the campsite, in the post-action series, or post-action investigation, we'll just say there were cups with toothpaste and toothbrushes sitting on sleeping bags. There were random individual packets of oatmeal shoved in side pockets. There were assorted snacks shoved into the mesh pockets on hip belts. And I'm talking like 50+% of the crew.
Wow.
And I was actually off that day, but I heard the radio call come in, and I asked that, and I had them contact Unit 20 or Bob Rickliffs, and he picked me up on the way by. My partner that day was already on site at CEDO. He had a ranger working with him. And they were told, hey, let's go ahead and tree this bear. Part of the problem in the end was the entire time the bear was tearing up the campsite, the neighboring crew, their advisors, were doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing. They were yelling at it, sitting there banging their pots and pans, making a general nuisance of themselves, and the bear paid them absolutely no mind. That's a bear that, in hindsight, was conditioned to be around people, and it was also food conditioned at that point. So it was habituated and conditioned. We pulled up. We were now almost a hunting lodge, and we had to send the dogs up to tree the bear. And I'm going to tell you right now, the decision was made to put the bear down because it was conditioned to food.
Yep.
It was habituated to people, both of which could have been avoided. The reason I am so passionate about the bears is, I'm just going to be blunt. When it was put down, it did not go as it normally goes. And even 20 years later, I still hear it. When they say a fed bear is a dead bear, that is not something they are joking around with. I personally had to trap quite a few bears on the ranch at the time. At the time, I thought it was pretty neat getting to trap them. I now know, in hindsight, as a professional biologist, honestly, relocating bears really doesn't work. They have an extremely strong homing sense, and most of them are back fairly quickly. Jeff, to that end, I trapped a bear at fish camp. We took him almost to Colorado. I trapped him less than 24 hours later at Miners Park.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they can move incredibly fast. So, like I said, in virtually every instance where there's been a problem, there's been major violations. A little history of why, because like I said, another thing I've commented on Facebook several times. I need everybody to understand. I see comments of, well, we do X, Y, and Z at Yosemite, or we don't do that in the Smokies, or we don't do this in New England, the Northwest. Yeah, I know. But you have to remember there's several things going on at Philmont that you don't get in dynamics with other bear populations. First off, virtually nowhere else is going to have this many people in a backcountry setting. And Philmont does have a fairly high bear density. Okay. We have good bear habitat. And so they're there. But
what would you say the density is? Like bears per acre, square mile, or whatever?
Historically speaking, that was the number we usually said was, I know historically we usually said it was between 150 and 200 bears at any given time. And that'll go up and down, kind of associated whether you're in what they call a cub year or if you're in a yearling year. Because keep in mind, the sows will have cubs usually every other year.
Huh.
And so, and a lot of that is going to also be driven on what is the drought cycle. And that right there is the big difference between Philmont bears and a lot of the ones you see around the rest. So you're sticking a lot of people in a backcountry setting, but being in the Southwest United States, they live a much more stressed lifestyle. And I mean biologically. And so some of the things we can look at there is, yes, it's nice and green and raining right now, which is great. That means that they're at least getting kind of a kickstart for the summer. But if when we started actually looking at a lot of the data of when we had bear problems or kind of rougher bear summers, a lot of times it wasn't so much the rain. It's if you're looking at the previous winter's snowpack. That's actually where we had the strongest statistical correlation to problems. And the reason being is if you don't have much snow and you're not getting a good spring snow melt, long story short, if the bears start off the summer or the spring and summer hungry, they're going to be playing catch up the rest of the summer. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, and then when we go, especially if we have a low snowpack year, and then we come into that following summer, if we go into drought conditions, that's when we see it. And so where this comes into play is, biologically, bears, they have one of the best birth control or population control methods we know of with delayed implantation. If you look at the bear populations across the United States, be it the Southeast, Northeast, Northwest, very rarely does delayed implantation come into effect in those populations. Food is typically relatively abundant. Water is typically relatively abundant. But when you're dealing with the southwestern United States, where you do get those drought conditions that kick in at least every 5 years or so, delayed implantation does kick in. And by that, I mean they won't carry a cub past really about November, December as far as development. And that's how they control their population. In reality, biologically, there is no such thing as an overpopulation of bears. It honestly doesn't happen. If the food is there, they reproduce. If the food is not there, they don't reproduce.
Well,
so
good to know.
Just something to keep in mind. But when I talk about the bear procedures and having the history of why certain things are done, we have to look at things like some people, I don't know if they're still teaching when they come into a campsite, hey, if there's rocks or logs near a campfire ring, look under them for a second. And the reason at the time we had to do that was actually a contributing factor to the 2 incidents that were up on top of Mount Phillips, of all places. If you are not aware, we did have 2 people injured on top of Mount Phillips in 2000. In both cases, the 2 incidents were about 6 hours apart. Mount Phillips is actually spread out over a pretty good long distance up there on top. And the 2 crews were not aware that each other were up there. And with the way the wind was blowing, the wind was coming off the peak going down towards campsite number 11. And the campsite on the downhill side is where the initial incident occurred. It had been raining all day. The crew elected, since it was a very superficial wound to the shoulder, they elected to hike down to a staff camp the following morning. I can understand that. But not knowing the other crew was in camp, they didn't warn the other crew. And at just after 4 o'clock in the morning, the bear came back to the other crew. And as soon as they started yelling and screaming, the other crew knew exactly what was happening. And I'll just be blunt, that actually nearly led to some fist fights between the advisors later on. But when we were up there at Clear Creek doing the after action investigation, both crews were very adamant that they were in clean campsites. And when we went up there, they sent me up with an entire Rito team, and they cleared the end. This is why we have to know where everybody is on their itineraries, and everybody sticks to their itineraries, because when you have a bear incident, when you have a fire, you have flooding incidents, they have to know where everybody is in case they have to. In that case, that morning, they evacuated the entire western central country.
Wow.
And pulled them down to staff camps. And when we got up there, yes, the campsites were clean. But when I started looking, we did find a couple of piles of bear scat. And here's the other thing. Prior to the incident, I had 1 report of a fairly small bear. As it turned out, we were still using Polaroids at that time. And they actually got Polaroid pictures of the bear in camp or right next to camp eating kinnikinnick at about 7:30 in the evening. Okay, this is something important as to why they changed some things. So when we get up there, I notice I find quite a few piles of bear scat, and I saw every single pile of bear scat up there had human food trash in it. And when we got over to campsite number 2, which is over next to the peak, I noticed a little bit of loose dirt around a log. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I moved the log, and there were 2 complete meal bags.
Oh, my.
That were hidden under the log.
Huh.
At that point in time, we started, myself and a ranger named Scott Hall, we went through all of the campsites on top of Phillips. And by the time we got done, we had an entire 18-gallon trash bag worth of food, not trash, food. And it was from crews that were getting lazy and didn't want to have to carry it.
Huh.
We found it hidden under rocks. We found it hidden under logs. We found it in Pilot the Bombardiers. The previous crews had set these people up to be in a dangerous situation. The following few days, I was not popular with the Rangers because I went back. I talked to Mark Anderson at the time. I talked to Bob Brickliffs. And the decision was, one of the things we noticed was a lot of where we had most of our problems were in campsites that were typically day 6 or later on the trail. Mm-hmm. So a lot of your Tooth Ridge campsites. And after we made that observation, we pulled 3 ranger teams, and they went up the next day, and they're like, this is not leave no trace. And I took a lot of flack from the Rangers initially. But they sent 3 teams up there, and that evening they came back, and I got a bunch of apologies. Because between Tooth Ridge, Schaefer's Pass, and Ponderosa Camp, they came back with almost 20 gallons worth of food and food trash. And it was all from crews that did not want to carry the weight to hike it in. So that's the history of why some of those practices were put in place. We had other years where locally we ended up having to make the decision not to sell candy at some of the backcountry trading posts because, they would leave, say, Baldy Town and go up to Yule's Meadow or Yule's Park and leave candy wrappers laying everywhere. Okay. We really try to avoid, I know they try to avoid doing that. In the end, one of the things, though, I want to let when I came back out in 2002, as all y'all, I'm not going to get into I don't necessarily want to get into the gory details of it. And actually, Jeff kind of encouraged me not to. So, as y'all are aware, we did have a very significant bear attack in 2001. When I came back in 2002, my job was to reinstill a respect for the bears, even with the staff. So what we ended up doing is I was given access and I got to read over the incident reports through 2002. I got to read over the incident reports for all of the bear incidents at Philmont at that time. And if you want to know whether the procedures work or not, keep in mind through the 40s up through the 60s or through the 70s, it was not uncommon to have anywhere between 1 and 3 people per summer get injured. Now, normally, the vast majority of them were extremely superficial, but you start noticing just little random trends that were in there, like why we don't want people meadow crashing. Well, a lot of the early incidents actually involved staff, and specifically involved wranglers, and specifically involved a bite to the left buttocks.
That's oddly specific.
It's where their skull can sat.
Ah. Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're out there meadow crashing, and bear comes by and just nips it.
Wow.
And so you had a whole bunch of stuff like that. And then 1986 occurred. Schaefer's Pass. That was significant. That's actually what triggered. That's when Philmont became more serious about the bear procedures. Honestly, there was a pretty major lawsuit. I got to read over all the court testimony on that and see all the neat stuff that came out of that. And that's what triggered a lot of the bear procedures, is that incident plus all the previous incidents that occurred. But to the point that the procedures work, we went from 1986 all the way up to 2000 with basically nothing. In 2000, we had 6 people in, depending on how you count it, in 4 separate incidents. That 2 at Mount Phillips. We had 1 at Rocky Mountain Scout Camp. So I need everybody to think about the location of Rocky Mountain Scout Camp. Right down the road from base. And then we had an individual that was injured at Cathedral Rock. And that was another one that was considered to be serious. And then we had another, then 2001 happened. And again, so that's 2001. Without getting into a lot of details, we're very lucky we did not have a fatality on that. But there were a number. I know we were looking at the stuff on Facebook, and I know some people were involved from the counts that were there. But I'm just here to tell you, I've seen the diagrams. I've talked to the bear researchers from 2001, and there were a number of issues that were involved there.
Yeah. So let's turn this a little functional. So if anyone is out there listening and they're going to take a crew, because typically we have advisors. We may have some youth watching either live or in replay, but typically it's crew advisors.
Yep.
Or even parents who may be, I think parents have it worse. If you're out in the field and something happens, you're distracted by being a part of it. It's the people at home who get to worry the whole time and have it worse, baby. So when you talk about bear procedures, you hit on one that I have caught myself a number of times where I'll have something in a hip belt pocket of my pack.
Yep.
And realize, like, before we're going to bed, I'm like, oh no, bring the oops bag down. I found something. And it's me.
Oh,
like
the oops bag is huge.
Yeah.
That's one of the easiest bear procedure functions you can follow is having that oops bag for when you suddenly discover you've got your chapstick or, you happen to hit that, you forgot to put on keep in mind, you're supposed to have your day clothes and your sleeping clothes. Mm-hmm. But, you suddenly discover, oh, I've got my leftover lunch snacks sitting in my pocket for some reason. No, don't just decide I'll just stick them in the bottom of my boot and try to hide it. No, get your tent mate, go stick in the oops bag.
Yeah. What would you say are the most common mistakes that you've seen that, all of these are avoidable mistakes, but,
yes.
If you were taking a crew, which you are actually, you're going with a crew here shortly. Maybe that's the way to approach this is what have you told them? Like, how have you said?
Okay. The number one issue that across all the incidents, the number one, regardless of smellables, the number one factor is being in an isolated tent. That's
you mean not grouped together with the rest,
not
like
grouped
together and then someone's out.
Yeah.
Okay,
gotcha. Not grouped together. Generally speaking, it is say it's usually it's usually somebody that wants to get away from the snoring advisors, and and they'll set up their tent 50 or 60 feet away, and end up in the middle of a game trail or something.
Oh, right.
So that's very common. And like I said, honestly, regardless of smellables, which are important, but the isolated tent is honestly pretty much number one factor. Then we take the smellables. The biggest mistakes I usually saw was the forgetting about snacks that were stashed in the little mesh pockets on hip belts. That was a huge one.
So have you suggested to your crew leader any kind of procedure for that? Like, hey, at dinner time or after dinner, do a bag check, have everyone go to their pack and physically verify.
Yeah, so the first things we're doing is, hey, make sure everybody's got their personal ditty bag that all their smellables are supposed to go into anyway. Secondary to that is having our wilderness pledge guide. They're the ones that are kind of taking the lead on reminding or going through and asking, okay, is everything, have you checked your hip pockets? Do you have anything in your side? Because usually people are pretty good about getting meal bags and all that may be down in the main compartment of their packs. But when you start getting to some of these Kelties and all that have all sorts of just random pockets everywhere, especially some of the ones that are the bigger almost hidden. I can tell you the ones that have almost the hidden front pocket, those are the ones that they tend to overlook. And just another, if you come up and you've hung your bear bags, but you come up and you got mini bears scattering all over the place, and they're actually scrambling from inside of the pack, I'm going to tell you right now, that was usually a cue to me that there's probably something. Yeah, they'll go in there, but if they're reluctant to leave, there's something in the pack.
That's a good point. So last summer, actually, I think the last 2 summers, was it maybe I'm getting years mixed up here. 2017, they had us put all the packs together under the Dine and Fly. And then later they said, no, that's too concentrated. Let's spread them out a little bit. So the last 2 summers when I was there, we would all just spread the packs out away, like individually.
Yeah.
And we never had any packs have any issue, like no critters of any sort getting in them.
Okay.
So I guess that's a good sign for us.
That is a good sign. And like I said, that's one of those where I've never really gotten hung up on that, other than the fact, I can just tell you right now, for me, I want to make sure the pack is away from the sleeping area. And I will just say that is associated. I'll just tell you that's associated with Cathedral Rock and Old Camp or Metcalf Station. Get the packs away. Honestly, I don't care if they're, listen to your ranger, go with what they tell you, but don't have your pack sitting, 5 or 10 feet in front of your tent.
Right. Good to know. All right. Any questions or comments? And Daryl, right on time. I just thought, are there any questions? And you started talking. That's amazing.
The question was, I've heard people talk and try to tell me that bears aren't at different altitudes. If you're way up high, Baldy and so forth, bears don't go that high. Is there?
No. No.
Everywhere.
Because I can tell you right now, one of the easiest places to spot bears is here in another couple of weeks when the moths start hatching larvae up on the backside of Baldy. They'll get up there, and you get up there early in the morning and start listening, and you can hear the bears flipping rocks over right above Copper Park. So yes, I've seen bears well up above the tree line, above Copper Park and up on the bald. And like I said, you get up there right about sunrise, and literally listen for rocks getting flipped over. And I've seen upwards of 5 bears at one time, all up there, because what they're doing is they're flipping rocks looking for moths or larvae under the rocks.
Wow.
And then to your other point, like I said, in 2000, we did have the 2 bear incidents up on top of Mount Phillips.
Right. Yeah. So what to do should you encounter a pacifist bear, a peaceful bear?
Yeah.
Versus, if one's being a little aggressive, or you find yourself in a, I don't know anything about bears, but I've heard that the getting between mama and a cub can be a bad place to be. So can you walk me through a couple of those scenarios and do's and don'ts?
I'll go through a couple of those just real quick. Just an FYI, out of the 50-something incidents that have occurred, none of them are classified as defensive. We've never had a bear incident that was a result of a bear getting cornered. We've never had a bear incident that was a result of somebody getting in between a sow and her cubs. That is not me encouraging you to go over and get between a sow and her cubs and tempt fate. Right. Let's not try for a first here.
Hey, I've seen The Revenant, so I know.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if you're up at Yellowstone or Glacier, by all means, don't get between a brown bear sow and her cub. But it's the sow with the cub issue is not as big a factor as people tend to make it up. They'll put on a scary show, absolutely, but then it's not something I would worry about. If you've got one that, I'll be honest, if you've got a bear that's close to you on the trail, shoot a photo, and then I'll be telling them, hey, I'd be clapping my hands, yelling at them. Again, every bear, and here's the challenge at Philmont. By late June to mid-July, basically every bear on Philmont is going to be habituated to people to some level. So we don't necessarily need them getting that comfortable around people. So if you've got one that's just wanting to sit there and stare at you as you walk by, clap your hands, sing at it. Don't necessarily let it get comfortable just sitting there. I guess Jess disappeared on us.
Yeah, his computer crashed. So,
Oh, okay.
yes. I'll just jump in. I know a couple years we went in 21,
Okay.
and we had an opportunity. I can't remember what peak we were going up, but it was along the Tooth Ridge, Schaefer's Peak. That's it.
Yeah.
And it would have been very easy for us just to leave our packs down at the bottom.
Yep.
It's not very far, and I insisted to stay with the packs because
Yeah.
I didn't want a bear have to lose their life because we just went, 300 feet up or whatever it was off the trail. So, we kind of took turns, and it would be very easy. Just it's only for 15 minutes. Well, anything can happen at 15, and we had just saw a bear a couple days before that, and near Miners Park. So,
well, I can tell you. As far as like timing and how fast they can be somewhere, we had a minor campsite issue at Aspen Springs, which is literally right outside of Cedo. I mean, it's close enough that it's actually closer than some of the outer campsites at Cedo. And the campsite got torn up a little bit. I set a trap in Cedo on that trailhead, and we baited it. And typically, when I set a trap, I would have to lubricate the door. Well, I didn't have any spray with me that day, and so I set the trap. I'm driving out of the camp, and I told the staff member, "Hey, next time you go down there, take some WD-40 and spray the hinges for me." Okay. 30 seconds later, he calls me on the radio and says, "Come back and get your bear." The bear, we figured it out. The bear was in there within 45 seconds of us leaving. It means they were pretty much sitting there watching us set the trap.
Dang.
Brett, I had, and I think those who've traveled Philmont before, in the food bags that they issue you, what would be your recommendation for a meal bag that happened to break in the backpack? Something, a drink mix, does the whole bag have to go up on the barrel at night? What's your recommendation on that?
Clean it out as best you can. If there's no visible staining, I would, get it as far away from anybody sleeping as possible. If there's any staining at all, just reduce the weight you can and stick it up. And I say that because we did have to do that with a kid. Unfortunately, it was not an accident. We had a deal at Harlan one year where it was a bullying situation, and some of the crew decided to pour fruit punch mix all over a kid's gear.
Oh, jeez.
And so we had to trade out a bunch of gear, but on his pack, because there was staining, we made the decision to go ahead and hang it.
Wow.
And guys, please take it seriously and don't let something, because like I said, that was just a straight up bullying incident, and that got me drug into it for bear procedures.
Yeah. What I've typically seen is after the meal, out or somebody will save the drink pack, the dry mix, and he'll have it in his pack, and that gets broken, and all that powder is all over.
Yeah. In that case, if you can just not wet, but if you can just kind of take a damp cloth and clean it as much as possible and let it air dry, if you don't see a lot of staining, again, get it away from the sleeping area. And I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if there's any staining, or if you stick your head in there and you still smell fruit punch or orange, by all means, stick it up. And in the end, with your smellables, that was always my recommendation, is, in all honesty, if you have to ask, probably go ahead and put it up.
That's a good question from Facebook user. Would chipmunks be a good indicator? Yeah.
Like I said, I used to write up quite a few. A lot of people refer to me as the bear cop, and a lot of it again is because of that 1999 incident. But I can tell you, I wrote up a lot of people, and I never went through a single pack. And chipmunks and mini bears were usually a real, like I said, if I one or two doing a scatter drill, that happens with every pack line out there. But if I walk up and I can hear them rummaging around in packs, yeah, that's a pretty good indicator that something's in there.
Yep. All right. Well, we are approaching our 1 hour mark. So I would like to, number one, I'd like to apologize for disappearing. My computer rebooted without warning. So I've set up the phone here while I'm trying to get the computer back. But since we're approaching our 1 hour mark and we try to keep these around an hour, I'd like to say thanks for joining us and giving us all that information. Very much appreciated. If anyone has any questions pertaining to bears, bear procedures, anything that Brett talked about, feel free to put them in the comments or to make a post in the Philmont Trek Talk group on Facebook so we can get some discussion going there to answer that question on its own. And I'd also like to encourage anyone who has other Philmont questions. We haven't taken many generic Philmont questions during this because we've had a lot of things to talk about. So now's your chance. If you were looking to get something answered, you know, your crew's going to be hitting the trail before the next one, before the next broadcast that we have, the second Tuesday of next month, then this is your chance to go ahead and leave a comment. So I'm going to say last call for questions. Get them in there and we'll answer the best we can. And I'd also like to give an opportunity for all of the panelists. If there's anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet, then please, I know Daryl's spoken a bit, Brett's spoken some, but Rob and Sal, if there's anything that you had that you wanted to mention, now is probably a good time.
I added something while you were offline, so.
Okay, good. I appreciate that.
This was interesting. This is great info to have, man.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good to go. Thanks, Brett. I will definitely make sure my crews remember the dreaded hip pockets.
Yeah,
I don't like to put snacks in my hip pockets. That's just me because I'll be the guy who forgets them.
Well, the drink packets are the tough one. Those are easy to put in that hip pocket and forget about it, or in your pocket.
Yeah.
If you have these hiking pants that have 14,000 pockets in them, that's real easy to put that stuff in there and forget about it. So
Cliff bars get stuck in there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I would like to think that I'm pretty attentive to this kind of thing, and it's not a daily occurrence, but probably every other day, maybe 2/3 of the day on the last 3 treks that I've been on. Probably 2/3 of the days when I'm doing that last check right before the oops bag's going up. Like I think I got everything, and I go around and check everything. I find something. So I would absolutely encourage people to, I don't know what kind of things they want to do within the crew, hold each other accountable for doing those checks and doing them well.
Yep.
Especially
like
around,
I said,
like you said,
you follow the procedures, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I saw a question come across earlier about volunteering.
Yes, I forgot to get back to that one.
My recommendation would be, there it is. If you're interested in volunteering, you have to go through the same process as the seasonal employee. If you need to fill out a request, an employment request, hey, I would like to come to Philmont. They'll review it. There is a section at the bottom that indicates whether you're going to be a seasonal employee or a volunteer, and check the appropriate box there. They will review your application and get back with you. That would be my recommendation if you're interested in volunteering. Fill out an application, designate volunteer, and you will hear something back from Philmont, the seasonal employee. If you do it now, it's pretty early for the 2024 season, unless you're planning yet this year. But depending upon the year you're applying for, there may be a several month delay. I mean, if you're applying in September, it may not happen till January or February.
Okay. Okay, let me shut this down.
Oh, there you go. We lost him again.
Oh, yeah, lost him again. Yeah.
Good. Now we can talk about him. Oh, darn, he's back.
Yay, he's back.
Okay, that was a good reminder not to run it on the phone and the computer at the same time. So there we go. You'd think I'd know better by now, but all right. Tons of thank yous out here. Thanks to everyone who followed along, asked questions, and feel free to share this around for anyone who missed it. I think we had a lot of good information here. So, Daryl, please thank Kathleen for allowing you the use of the good Wi-Fi there. It's good to have you here and able to let us know what's going on. Andy Parrish Outdoors.
Where were you,
Apparently
Andy
was
Parrish
listening,
Outdoors?
but couldn't be bothered to join us. So,
Doc
I
is
see how this works.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, since I'll be there Saturday, anybody on the thing look for me. I'll be out there. Look for my blue tag on my backpack.
Oh, that's what I meant to say earlier. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. So, look at all those.
Wow. Not that many, just one.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that we used to talk about every year before the trek started. And I think that we pretty much forgot to put the post up telling everyone wear something like a blue tag, a blue ribbon, something. You can get tags from Daryl that says, either the blue, like a Facebook shade of blue, or or one of those specific tags that says PTT for Philmont Trek Talk. That's a way of kind of self-identifying to other people out on the trail that you're part of the group. So you can, give each other high fives and talk about, how crazy it is that Sal's on Team Chair or something like that,
Team Chair. Oh, and there he is. At the end.
They're sneaking in at the last second.
Remove the blue tag before flight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have heard about dramatic entrances, but that's really kind of pushing the bounds of it, Andy.
Well, you guys were going, and it was a lot of great information. I came on probably about 20 minutes into the stream, and I've just been watching the whole thing, but I didn't want to interrupt. And it's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for dropping in.
Goodbye. No.
So if anyone,
Brett here, so that was, we could just had Brett and Jeff, and that's it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Or even better, Brett and someone who knows how to work a computer. And that would have been even better. So,
there's this YouTube channel out there called Andy Parrish Outdoors, and he seems to do pretty well with that. So
that's what I hear. Yeah.
We should have that guy on.
I know.
Yeah, we should.
When he shows up.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have enough viewers for him, but we're working on it. So, Daryl, you got a whole bunch of those. Are you making those available? Like, can someone give you a couple bucks and get one at the Welcome Center? Or?
Well, I wasn't thinking about that cheap. No.
Yeah, they're not that cheap. I've bought them before. So.
But yeah, if they want to stop by, I'm only going to be there for another week and a half till the 24th. and I don't want to burden the Welcome Center staff, with that. But if they stop by and, ask for me, we can work it out for them.
Yeah.
But, I do not want to impose on the time,
Sure.
Philmont time. And I'm gracious that may come, and I don't want to, abuse that privilege.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. But I mean, you have a bunch of them, and I'm
Yes,
sure
we
you're
do.
not going to carry all those. So
I try to lighten my pack.
I suspect you made them to distribute to people. Do you have a plan for that? Like if anyone saw them, is like, oh, I got to have one. How do they do that?
While here at Philmont, or
Yes.
a month from now?
Yes.
Yeah. Gee, thanks. Leave a note on the if you're not coming, leave a note on the Facebook page, and we'll work it out. Should you care to make a donation, that's fine. Anything that we would collect, we will pass directly along to Philmont and their what's it called? In support of their recovery for the youth park, recovery.
That's a good plan.
So,
yeah. So I've got one of those. I've actually got two of those. Scott O'Mary's not here. I have Scott's tag from a couple years ago that I never sent to him. I really should. Every time I find it and in my gear stash, I'm like, oh, look at that. I found it. I got to set that aside and send it to Scott. I keep forgetting to send it to him. But anyhow.
Brett, when will you be here? Brett, when would you be?
I should be there about 10 o'clock in the morning on the 24th, or actually the 23rd.
I'll still be here. Stop by the Welcome Center.
It's one of our first stops.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Well, they actually assigned me shifts. Just I could have done this much work at home.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
I'll try to look you up.
Please do.
Yeah, that's good. So if anyone can't catch up with Daryl either virtually or in person to get one, just wear something blue. Like I got a piece of ribbon and I hang it I wear a big floppy hat that's got a little, what's that string called that goes down around your neck on those hats? A strap. Okay. It's got a hat strap, and I hang a little blue ribbon from the bottom of that. So it's right in front of me. And then I've got something that I clip on my bag, and it's on a clip so I can take it off and put it on a belt loop if I'm in a camp. So I've always got something blue on if I'm out there. You got a variety of different ways you can do that if you care to do that. Those are really cool.
Blue bonnet.
Ask your crew leader. That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Good job on those. Excellent.
Anybody not ready?
Yeah. Well, that's how we close out the show. So why don't we go ahead and move on to that? Because I think we're done. I think it's time to shut things down. So you stole my thunder, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is anybody not ready?
Hike on.
Hike on.
Right.
Hike on.
Thanks everyone.